Hey guys, my name's Khadroth, and today we're going to be going over Habetrot, particularly everything you need to know about her. For starters, I can't talk about Habetrot without talking about the fact that she is an FP unit. She's a 4-star that you guys are going to get when you finish 6.3. You will be gifted a copy of her, but from there, every single copy that you roll is going to require you to roll the FP gacha in order to try and get more of her. That rate is somewhere around 0.05%, which I believe equates out to about 200,000 FP. Chat can double check me on that, as they have been. And then in the meantime, also understand that you cannot roll her until you've completed 6.3. So for those of you guys that are trying to roll her right now, if you haven't completed the actual totality of LB6's story, you will not be able to get her out of the FP gacha. So please don't waste your FP early. Similarly, with regards to FP concerns, you guys got to keep in mind that there is wild variance in that. You guys might roll out more than 1 million before you ever see a copy of Habetrot. That is just a thing. So don't get discouraged. As long as you've beaten 6.3, trust me, she is there. I know people that have already rolled her, so it is a thing. She will be a very useful unit for you guys upcoming in the lotto, depending on the node that you're doing, and she will also be useful to you down the line because, as you guys are going to see, Habetrot is one of the best riders in the entire game, and I don't make that statement lightly. So let's talk about what it is that makes Habetrot so great. Let's start by going through her kit. So right off the bat here, you guys can see, again, she is got about 8.6k attack here. So that's not too great. It's not too bad. She's knocking on the door to 9k, but not quite there yet. So attack power is a little bit on the lower side of what I'd like to see, but it's still decent with regards to, again, her capability. But I don't think you're going to really find her too wanting in terms of actual damage. Her HP value here is a little bit more anemic, but there's actually good reasons for this, and there's good stuff we can do with it. So don't worry about it too much. For those of you guys that have maybe used her already in story, do keep in mind that there are certain things about the story version that are different than the actual version we get, and I'm not going to talk about that. Just I'm going to point out to you how her kit works when you roll her, so that way you guys have an idea. Again, she has a higher than average 205 star absorption right here, and then star generation rate of 9%. She has a 0.57 NP gain rate, which is okay. It's pretty average at this point in time. We see 0.57. It tends to be like, hey, this isn't anything too stellar or too good, but in the grand scheme of things, this is an arts unit, so I don't think you guys are going to have too bad of a time with that NP gain rate, and you'll see why in a minute. She has 3% NP charge defense, which is just, again, going to be pretty standard there. 40% death rate, so she is certainly higher than average. She'll be far more likely to get death, so maybe keep that in mind with how you plan to use her. But, again, with this being Habetrot, we can actually potentially use her getting death to our advantage. From here, you guys can see that she is neutral good alignment. She is female gendered, Brynhilder's beloved, Fae, fairy tale servant, humanoid, levitating, riding, servant, 7 nights servant, and weak to Enema Elish. So again, this is one of those things where we might be able to exploit the fact that she is a Fae, particularly for using someone like, say, Morgan against her. Or again, we might be able to buff her or deal extra damage to her depending on how we may be using a Bryn in the party. So keep in mind that there are numerous things that you can do to kind of work around her various traits. Now, with regards to her kit here, you're going to see she's double arts, double quick. Her quick hit counts here are at least 4 hits, so that's fairly solid. Again, riders tend to be pretty decent at being able to soak stars, so her having decent hit counts here, plus the riding trait that's going to help boost that, not too bad here. This does mean we're going to have at least decent quick star generation from her quick cards. And again, she is going to have a 3-hit arts card, which is coming in right on average, and at that 0.57 NP gain rate, that's okay. I think I maybe would have preferred to have a 3rd arts card here, especially for the purposes of forming triple arts chains, but still not too bad. I still think this is better to have the 2nd quick card than maybe a 2nd buster in her case, because you're going to be doing a lot of looping with Habetrot. She only has a 2-hit Buster card, and again, we don't care too much about the hit counts with our Buster cards because they're not particularly strong at generating Noble Phantasm. Anyways, it's mostly going to be, hey, that would help out with star generation, but it is what it is. Her extra attack is actually 1 below average, so that's something we have to worry about a little bit, but again, nothing too bad there. Her first skill right here is going to be Lucky Spinning. This is going to recover one ally's HP, so it's a targeted heal of up to 2,000 HP. It's going to grant them debuff immunity for 1 turn. This is going to be really nice depending on the circumstances that you're in, particularly in challenge scenarios. This is going to allow you to target someone, put a debuff immunity, and then maybe utilize all of Habetrot to the best of her ability and get rid of her. From there, she has the ability to increase their star generation rate by 100%, which if you guys remember, Cass Gill has a 100% star gen modifier in his kit. That is why his NP managed to generate so many stars. It's that collaboration there with the fact that he has a really high hit count NP. You're not necessarily going to have that case with Habetrot here, but certainly this is going to be useful for either utilizing on her to help her in a moment's need for generating stars, or on a target that will be a lot more suited for that sort of thing. So again, a 100% star gen increase is nothing to sneeze at. That's really good. And this is all on a 3-turn cooldown at max rank, so it's a very low cooldown heal and debuff immunity. Her second skill here is going to be Arts Up of 3 turns for herself of 30%. So this is going to help out that NP gain. This is going to help out damage, and it's going to be 3-turn durations that you guys can utilize it multiple turns in a row for multiple NPs. From there, it's also an 80% charge skill. That is strong. That is one of the biggest aspects to Habetrot's kit that just really helps her pop off. Habetrot becomes sort of this auto looper as an arts unit because she has an 80% charge skill here. And due to the fact that she is a welfare pretty much, you're going to have NP5 of her eventually. You're going to be hitting decently hard with her. So it's a really, really solid thing for her, as it's going to allow her to functionally loop from 0, utilize stuff like Black Grail, and again, can be a really solid damage dealing writer for you. She's all got this on a 7-turn cooldown, so that's not good. And similarly, she has a 2,000 damage demerit here, so that's also not good. Thankfully, if you remember, again, she has the 2,000 self-healing on a 3-turn cooldown, so you can pretty much easily offset this with her first skill should you need. Her third skill here is a Doozy, and this one is going to basically give her the ability to grant a female ally. So she can target someone with this, but if they're female, she will grant them invuln for 1 turn. So it's going to help protect them. It's really, really nice. Then from there, it's also going to grant them guts 1 time 5 turns. They don't have to be female for that, I believe. Maybe they do. No, I think they do have to be female for that. That one's worded a little bit weird. It's also then going to grant them healing regeneration buff for 5 turns, which again is another really, really solid thing, as that's just going to allow them to keep healing over time. It's functionally going to act as a protection mechanism for one of your units. It's also going to cleanse them, which again is really, really solid here to have. So this is going to remove any sort of ailment on them, any sort of negative status effect. That is an ailment. And then from there, it's also going to protect them, heal them up over time. And again, remember, you still have the guts on them potentially, as well as the first skill that you might still have hanging around that you can use on them. So it's really, really a potent capability to keep a female alive. However, the offset here is that it has a 500% chance to grant herself a delayed debuff for 1 turn that's treated as a buff. So just like with Oberon, we were talking about that before, you can't block it, you can't stop it, it's treated as a buff, it's made to be something that you can't get around. And then what that's going to do is 1 turn later, she will sacrifice herself. So functionally, at the end of the turn, as you're going into say another wave, Habetrot will die. This is really good. This makes her a 4-star version of Arash. And while Arash has that capability of being sort of a low-star unit that's cheap on your budget, Habetrot has that capability of being a looper for you, or somebody that can charge up from 0 and handle a wave themselves. That's the way to think about Habetrot, is Habetrot can be either your devoted damage dealer or someone that is sacrificial. And so there's a lot of good things that you can utilize for that. And again, you guys can see that the guts is no slouch here on a female at 5,000 HP, and again, up to 2,000 HP regen there over 5 turns. That is definitely not bad. This is a really, really strong skill, because again, you can sort of set the stage. You can have Habetrot handle a wave or maybe deal some damage to the boss, and then keep your sort of key female unit alive, protect them, give them guts for 5 turns, give them healing, cleanse them. So it's really, really nice to have. But again, that is why this one's all on a 10-turn cooldown. So you certainly don't have to lure this skill. You don't even have to lure the first skill if you don't want. The big one that you're going to want to lure is going to be this second skill. And to me, this is where you should certainly focus your efforts for Habetrot. And that's why I'm going to recommend leveling her pretty much here, again, as the sort of like, it probably depends on how you're going to be utilizing her, but I would go with at least 2 on the first one here for the first skill that you're going to level. Then from there, you can go either 3-1 or 1-3 in determining the order that you want to level them. It's really up to you to determine which one you find more useful. I'm going to say go 3, because to me, that's going to be the big thing that you're going to actually want to pop off and do very good. Versus, again, the first skill there, which, while yes, it does have a low cooldown, it's not going to necessarily swing the tide of battle like this skill will. So, up to you. You're not really after the cooldown so much on these other skills. So, again, you're going to want to learn the second skill. But the other 2, you don't really have to do too much with that. Now, let's talk about her passives here. She has Riding Sea, like I denoted before, which is just going to help her star generation. It's going to be nice for her quick cards, so nothing too much to write home about that. She gets Item Construction B for debuff success rate of 8%. You don't have to worry too much about this. She doesn't really do too much in that regard. And then Fey Eyes C to increase her own critical attack chance resistance by 12%. So this is just reducing the odds of someone critting her. So definitely another nice thing if you need to kind of keep her up for at least a turn. Now, with regards to her pin skills, absolutely, unequivocally, this one's pretty much non-debatable. Level and lure the mana loading. This is something that you should almost do before even skills 3 and skill 1. Why? Remember that 80% charge skill? Yeah, you get this and that lured, and now you're basically able to get 100% under her own power turn 1 with no external buffs. That is really strong. And like we already talked about, you could utilize her as the looper herself, as the damage dealer who's handling all the waves, or you could have her just quickly and easily take out a wave and then yeet herself, kill herself off, and then you don't have to worry too much about it. So I do think this is a really strong setup for her, and that's why I'm going to recommend going with the mana loading first. Her third skill here, though, is Anti-Berserker attack damage aptitude, so you should probably go for that next. It is certainly nice, and again, given the fact that this is a welfare unit functionally, you can keep rolling more copies of her from the FP pool for more of your coins. So you should be able to get this done. Just make sure you get the mana loading first, then go after the third append here for the Anti-Berserker attack damage aptitude, and then obviously the extra attack finesse as the last one. It's still good, it's not bad, it's just probably the weakest of the 3, but you know, that's because the other 2 appends here are actually good. So let's talk about her Noble Phantasm now. She's got a 3-hit AoE Arts NP. She increases her own NP damage by 30% for 1 turn activating first. And remember, while it is only 1 turn duration, so you can't stack it, this is a source of NP damage up. So if you're actually using, say, Oberon as your third support here, yeah, you would be able to actually come in there and boost that, double that up with Oberon's third skill. She then deals damage that ignores defense buffs to all enemies, so definitely another nice little extra thing there. And then she reduces her own critical star absorption by 100% for 3 turns. That's not the best, especially as a rider, especially as an arts unit. You want her to soak stars. But again, I don't think you're going to see it being too much of a problem, as her overcharge effect actually is a 20 crit star bomb. So unless you have people that are like really high up in terms of star absorption, or again, you've just managed to loop with her 3 times in a row, you're not going to worry about it too much. But so here you go again. If Habetrot NPs once, then dies and the party rotates, your next turn, you had a 20 crit star bomb right there just from that. And you could make this even stronger if the person who rotates in also has a star bomb CE, or again, some sort of intuition-like skill that generates stars. So you can magnify this effect even more. So it's a really, really strong capability here. And it's why, like I said, Habetrot just has one of the best kits amongst all writers. It makes her just crazy good, especially from a budgetary standpoint. You don't have to have your own Castoria necessarily even to make Habetrot pop off. There are numerous other low star options that you can use to help buff Habetrot on top of maybe taking a support Castoria to help even things out. So Habetrot's a really, really solid unit for those of you guys that are not trying to whale, trying to do things on a budget. And again, like I talked about, there is a node in the lotto where, yeah, you could actually just use Habetrot on that and be able to 3-turn. It's not going to be your 90 plus, it is a 90 node, but hey, if that's what you guys need to do to be able to farm efficiently, it's a really, really solid option for you. And like I already pointed out, Habetrot has numerous other instances where she can function for you as sort of that sacrificial lamb right there at the beginning of a CQ, or again, a boss fight to try and rotate the party. So again, I think she has just a really solid kit. So with regards to that kit, what do we see ourselves using for that in terms of damage output? Well, Black Grail is going to be your best option here, as again, she can start basically from 0 under her own power. You might find that she might have a little bit of trouble looping with Black Grail, but that's just because she only has 3 hits on her NP, and it's going to be difficult to actually get them to be overkill at times. So it just depends on what you're up against, but certainly Black Grail, especially at MLB, is going to be the strongest damage modifier you have in the game. Doubly so if you have, say, Oberon as the 3rd support, rotating in and boosting her. There you go, that 80% turns into 160%. So it's really, really strong to be able to utilize that there. But maybe you don't have Black Grail, maybe you're a longer term player and you have an old welfare CE like Royal Icing. This one wouldn't be too bad either. It would give you NP damage up of 25% and arts up of 15% to still help out the damage and a little bit more of the refund there. So certainly a decent option, but that's from the Oniland event, so good luck getting that. The CE actually will not come back as one of the CEs that comes back up with the upcoming Halloween, so you're a little bit SOL on that one right now. But we do have Ocean Flyer coming up, and this is actually going to be coming up here on NA from Summer 6. This one's a welfare CE. It has 50% starting charge, which she probably doesn't need, but hey, if you're going up against odd set waves, like enemies that, you know, say the node is like 3-1-3 or something like that, or 1-2-2 or something, and you know you're not going to have a whole lot of refund, sometimes starting out with 50% charge can be nice for that. It'll allow you to just sort of like operate your skills in a different order and maybe save, like, say, her charge skill for that single enemy wave where you know you're not going to refund a bunch off the back end of that. So certainly that can work out for you here. And again, like I said, this one's welfare. This one's all attack power. You got the 50% charge, the 15% NP damage, and 8% arts up. There's also Sign of a Smiling Face. This one's an older sort of New Year CE. It's a pretty decent one. It was often compared back in the day to Royal Icing. But if you guys happen to have been around long enough to roll for this, or you find the opportunity presenting itself coming up here in a new New Year's banner, you can certainly try to get your hands on it, as again, it gives arts performance of 15%, NP gen rate of 15%, and NP damage of 20%. So just a very nice potent cocktail for both looping and power right there. And it's, again, all attack scaling. That one, though, is a just 5-star Gacha CE. Honey Lake is another really nice one if you're trying to, say, get away with invuln Pierce for her, because that's something that she doesn't have. She does have defense Pierce, but not invuln Pierce. And certainly Honey Lake is really nice because it's known for its sort of ability to have a power mod here to enemies afflicted with burn. You can throw burn command codes on some of Habetrot's cards and then have her just sort of tag the enemy before her NP and then have her just sit there, keep looping over it. And as long as it's got that burn up, you're going to be doing 40% 40% more damage and invuln piercing here, all with attack scaling. Problem with this one, again, is it doesn't have a whole lot of banners remaining, and they're kind of few and far between, so if you don't already have it, you're not necessarily going to be able to get it. Another old one from an old anniversary here is Knowing the Way Broadly. This one's another invuln pierce one. It's all attack scaling. It obviously ignores invincibility, and then it gives you NP damage of 20% and NP gen rate of 20%, so both things that could help Habetrot. And this one is also a 5-star Gacha CE, so you're pretty much just like with Sign of a Smiling Face. Could be waiting on potentially rolling during a New Year's banner or something like that where you can get your hands on it. We do have a much newer one that came out during the Valentine's event. This one's also another limited gacha one, but this one is from the Valentine's event from the current year of JP. So this one's not very old at all, but something you could look forward to. It is all attack scaling, ignore invincibility, arts up of 5%, and NP damage of 20%. Now, what if, though, you want to use Habetrot as more of a sacrifice, as someone to you know, get an NP off and then die and rotate the party? Well, there's numerous things you can do with that, including an old trick that I used when I first started on JP. And that's 500-year obsession, as I like to call it. That's how it's known on NA here. This one is all attack scaling, and it's one of the old school CEs that actually scales up to 2400 attack power. You don't have to level that to 100. I don't blame you if you don't, because it's a very niche CE, but it is interesting to denote that. And what this one does is that whenever the unit is defeated, including sacrificing themselves, they have a 200% chance to NP seal the unit who last dealt damage to them for 2 turns, and a 200% chance to inflict curse of 2000 damage for 10 turns to them. So you're looking at 20,000 extra damage here and a 2-turn NP seal on whoever dealt the killing blow. That's a very nice poison pill to inflict on the enemy. But there's all of these, there's sort of the poison pill tactic, and there's also the, hey, I want to charge the party tactic. If you happen to have been someone that was around for the original or rerun of the Da Vinci Lotto, you might have your hands on the Merciless one, aka Impieta. And what this one does is basically when the unit is defeated, it's going to charge the entire party's gauge by 20%, and it also increases the unit's buster performance by 15%. So really, really strong right there. But most of you guys won't have that one, so instead, you're going to have to look towards more of a 3-star craft essence that everyone can get their hands on, which is Battle of Camland. This one's actually pretty decent, as again, at MLB here, shouldn't be too hard to acquire as long as you guys have enough FP to roll out. You guys can actually get up to 15% gauge when the unit dies. So as Habetrot sacrifices herself, the rest of the party gets 15% gauge. The only problem with taking these sorts of tactics is, say if you're in the middle of an actual like event or something like that, you're trying to take the actual event craft essences, using something like Black Grail or Battle of Camland or any one of these other Cs, not necessarily the best of scenarios. So you're going to save these more for like desperate tactics during a challenge fight or something like that, rather than necessarily farming or doing something like that with it. So certainly an interesting thing, but nothing that you probably will find yourself using too often. Now, with regards to Habetrot's damage, remember I called her one of the best riders in the game, and that might not be apparent from a damage standpoint. In fact, if you look at the damage chart here, remember all of these numbers are neutral, so it's assuming that they're hitting a neutral target, not something they're effective against. It's not including any external buffing or anything like that. It's just assuming that they're foed, it's assuming that their skills are at 10, and that they have all of their own skills popped on themselves. That's it. It's all it assumes for damage output here. But as you guys can see, she doesn't even appear, and I have to actually scroll down to get to her. But remember, she is a unit that is functionally a welfare. So as an AoE arts welfare here, at MLB, sorry, not MLB, at MP5, you're going to be looking at 28,000 damage, which right up there ends up putting her solidly behind Achilles in terms of damage output. Now, the thing about this is, none of the other units ahead of her, other than maybe Achilles in the right set of circumstances, is going to be touching Black Grail. So Habetrot's damage can function at a much higher capacity than even these units, assuming proper buff strategies are employed. Now, It definitely depends. Someone like, say, Ivan in their niche can certainly outdamage her. Or again, if you just manage to set him up properly with a good 50% craft essence, double Koyanskaya, and Oberon, yeah, you can absolutely outdamage Habetrot at that point. But that being said, the fact that Habetrot can even be included in this conversation really speaks volumes to how good she is. In fact, we can make a decent argument that she just outright is our best arts AoE writer in the game at this point. You certainly have a lot of tough competition there, particularly with Leonardo da Vinci with what she does for the party. But Habetrot is so fluid and so nice in what she does that, again, having the ability to sacrifice herself on top of that and protect one of your allies is really, really a strong and potent kit. And all of that is still not including the fact that she ignores defense there as well. So certainly can be very useful for you. Now, with regards to Habetrot's actual refund numbers here, let me take a quick look. Basically, with double Castoria and no overkill hits, you're looking at somewhere around 68% refund. And you might be thinking, well, hey, Cad, that's not that great. Well, that's no overkill. And especially on opening salvos, especially if you're using something like Black Grail, you're going to be dealing overkill hits. It's not going to be a lot. Remember, she's only a 3-hit, so you might be looking at 1. But 1 overkill hit is turned into 3 if you're against 3 enemies. So you can certainly get a little bit more there. And at 3, it goes all the way up basically to 79.29%. So that is me showing you the actual numbers right there for rounding purposes. But certainly that's not too rough, as essentially you could end up, like I said, starting out with something like the mana loading, ending up doing something like her 80% charge skill to get her arts up of 3 turns right there on turn 1. Or you could instead invert that and go with all Castoria buffs. But either way, the next turn you would have sequentially even more charge to be able to use on her from either the support or her own skill. So yeah, you could certainly 3-turn with her from 0. I've done it plenty of times, especially if you're utilizing a 3rd support to fill in any sort of gap or deficiency that you might have. And like I already told you, Oberon's one of the best ones for that, just given the fact that he gives NP damage up, which is a type of buff that, you know, Castoria doesn't have, Habetrot doesn't really have, other than her the thing right before her NP goes off. So realistically speaking, you're looking at some really solid damage boosting capability there. And again, I do think Habetrot is going to be well worth your investment over time, as she is a unit that I've used prolifically for years to carry me on JP until I got some better riders. So I highly recommend getting copies of her, even if you don't necessarily get them right away here. Certainly, if you start waiting until like something like Gouda 5 rerun, where there's a really good incentive and really good time to roll out your FP, that can definitely be more up your alley and something that's actually good for you. So, like I said, you don't have to roll now. You could delay. Or you can roll the second you get done with 6.3. If you have a lot of FP, you can certainly just try to get her to MP5 right away. But certainly, I think it's going to be a long-term effort of trying to collect those coins even after you get the 5 copies. So let me know what you guys think. Let me know about you guys' stories of using Habetrot as well, for any of you guys that have played on JP prior to now. And again, good luck with 6.3. I'll be doing the Saberface only run here on NA, live on Twitch here this whole week. And then certainly we'll be awaiting the Oberon rolls next Monday, I hope. So I will see you guys for that one. Thank you guys for watching, and have a good one.